Hi everyone, nice to meet you all. My name is Diogo Capella, and like Joanna was saying, I'm a lawyer and I work in Lisbon, even though I have some clients all over the country. So that's not a surprise to come to Algarve when it's required. And just starting my presentation by saying thank you to Lagos Digital Nomads team and on the person of Joanna, and say thank you to all to be here all together at this hour. To learn something about residence visas, namely the digital nomad visa. And I start by asking you if someone here is specifically for the digital nomad visa. Okay, 2. Okay, and the others probably they are looking for residence visas in general, I imagine. Okay, very well. So let's start the presentation. So we will cover both, okay? We will cover both scenarios, not only the digital nomad, but other kinds of visas, so everybody will be included on this. Who we are. So, like I was saying, I'm a lawyer, and I am the partner of a law firm. I'm the founder of Lamarche Capella and Associados. Our law firm is specialized in immigration law, citizenship law, real estate, corporate, and tax. So we provide services to those who want to live or invest in Portugal. That being said, 99% of our clients are foreigners who wish to relocate to Portugal or invest in the country. And why do they do that? Probably all of you already know Portugal very well, but I start this presentation by mentioning some of the reasons for the foreigners to choose Portugal in particular and not any other country in the world. And I start by the generic reasons that they find very quickly, that Portugal ranks as a third most valuable passport. So we have a very strong passport and gives access to hundreds of countries, as you can see there. Is the 6th most peaceful country out of 163 countries. Is the fourth best expat destination for quality of life. Portugal was voted the cheapest country to live in, and this was very recent. Forbes magazine just mentioned Portugal as the cheapest country to live in. The third best for employed women out of 63 countries, and the 4th highest for integration of minorities, and 8th highest for integration of immigrants out of 133 countries. Those are some of the reasons, and probably you are looking for at this and you just saying, but and the food and all about the beaches and all about the weather, that's also true. Yeah, you're right, that's also true. For digital nomads in specific, it's the 3rd highest in the EU for ultra-fast fixed broadband, the 22nd highest speed for fixed broadband, and the 31st for mobile out of 178 countries. Is the 38th best for digital public services, 9th best for English proficiency, is the 6th best prepared for a greener and more inclusive economy, and Lisbon was ranked the 3rd of Europe's most vegan-friendly capital cities. Why is this relevant? Is because according to some studies, we now know that 25% of digital nomads are vegans. So that's why we've included all this. And now, what about the visas and how these digital nomads can relocate to Portugal or come to Portugal? There are two types of visas that they can use for this purpose. A temporary stay visa, which is granted for people that want to stay in Portugal for a period that is less than 1 year, okay? And residence visas for people that want to stay for a longer period, for more than 1 year in Portugal. The temporary stay visa. This is actually the visa that is granted to the true kind of digital nomad. The digital nomad, as you all know, is a person that has no fixed domicile or any place that he or she stays for more than 1 year. Is traveling a lot, and so this is the temporary stay visa, is for this kind of people that actually want to travel a lot and stay in several countries all around the world, and within 1 year, for example. And this temporary stay visa must be applied for the Portuguese consulate of the country of residence of the nationality of nationality, and will be issued within 30 days. So all the application is done in the country of residence or nationality of the applicant, okay? Family reunification is not included in this kind of visa. Now the legal stuff, okay? It's important just for you to understand the requirements of this kind of visa. This will be the same for the residence visa. Later on we will see. The visa application requires, among others, the following documents. For employees, one of those documents: employment contract, of course, statement from the employer attesting the employment relationship, and for self-employed workers, contractors, one of the following documents: articles of incorporation, if services are provided through a company, service provision agreements, documents attesting the services rendered to one or more entities. And later on we will see that this can be done through, or for these services can be done for an individual or even a company, of course. Proof of average monthly income over the past 3 months of at least the equivalent of 4 times the minimum wages. In Portugal, it's 760 euros per month. And so they will need to show that they receive at least 3,040 euros per month within a period of 3 months. Document proving the tax residency. Now the residence visa. As I said before, this is for people that are not quite digital nomads, but they're more like remote workers. People that can stay in Portugal or any other country in the world. They just use their laptops and they can perform their job remotely for any entity overseas. And so this is just for a period of more than 1 year, as I said. And the documents and requirements, as you can see here, are the same. I will not repeat them. It's too boring for everybody. But here you have it, and later on, this presentation will be sent to you, so you will have access to this. How is the timeline? How this works? All the application for the residence visa. Okay, so there's 3 steps on the process. The first is the visa application. As I said before, it's required to make the application through the consulate of the country of residency or nationality of the applicant, okay? And so this starts there on the Portuguese consulate or diplomatic representation of Portugal overseas. It can be a consulate or embassy. And the visa will be issued within 2 months. It's, on average, is what it takes. By law is 2 months, what they have. At the time of issuing the visa, the consulate informs about the date of the appointment with CEF. This is a very good thing to know because, as you can see on the second step, there's the application for the residence permit. So first will be to obtain a residence visa, travel to Portugal, and using that visa, they will need to change the visa to a residence permit so they can have later on the residence card, okay? So it's relevant to know when they can do that change. And the consulate will inform right at the beginning when they have the visa, exactly the date of the appointment with CEF in Portugal. The visa entitles the applicant to have 2 entrances in Portugal and is valid for 4 months, during which time the applicant must travel to Portugal because it's the validity of that visa. They come to Portugal and attend the appointment with CEF. What it takes is like they will collect the biometrical data like photograph, fingerprint, and signature by the applicant, and of course collect the fees. They are not so high, but after this, like within 1 or 3 months, the applicant will receive the residence card in the Portuguese address. The estimated time to all of this to be completed is about 8 to 9 months, okay? Advantages of any kind of residence permit in Portugal. This is also applicable, of course, to remote worker visa. Travel within the Schengen area without needing or without the need of having a Schengen, another visa, okay? Obtain the non-habitual residence status. I heard someone that was under this non-habitual residence status before you. Okay, so very well. Be covered by the National Health Service. Family reunification, allowing the applicants to join the family members. Apply for the permanent residence after 5 years, and apply for the Portuguese citizenship after 5 years as well. Those, the last 2 will require a basic level of Portuguese language, is the A2 level test. Not so difficult, let me tell you. After 5 years of spending in Portugal, you probably will know some words, even before that. And you will take the test, and that's it. Submitting the application for both, and you can have the Portuguese passport later on. Now, this was the presentation about the nomad or remote workers or nomad visas. But there's not the only one that foreigners can use in order to relocate to Portugal. As I told before, there are several, as you can see here, depending on the kind of or the situation of the applicant, and some, as you can see here, the D1 visa is the residence visa for employees. So subordinated workers, people that have a work contract with a company that is based in Portugal. Easy. D2 is the residence visa for entrepreneurs or contractors. People that instead of having a work contract, they have a service agreement with a Portuguese-based company. The D3 visa can be applied to both employees and contractors, but the main difference here is that is specific for highly qualified professionals. Okay, and so there are some requirements that they are different from the D1 and D2 visa, but we will see later. D4 for students, interns, volunteers, but namely it's more relevant students. D5 for student mobility. D6 for family reunification. This is also relevant because the law has changed recently, and besides the fact of the law was or created a new kinds of visas like the digital nomad, and here, as you can see, the job seeker visa. There's also a new visa which is mentioned there, I don't think this works here. Okay, for accompanying family members, and this is not the family reunification. This is not the D6 visa, because the D6 visa is only for people that are already in Portugal, and then apply for the family reunification for the family members that are overseas. And the other visa is intended for the family members that are also overseas with the applicant and they are applying at the same time, all at the same time. At last, not the last one, but D7 visa, also relevant. And probably lots of people here have heard about the D7 visa before. D7 visa is intended for retirees and passive income holders. What is that passive income? We are talking about sources of income that you can, or the applicant can obtain, even if it's in Portugal or any other country in the world, without having to work or perform any job for that purpose. We are talking about rents, dividends, royalties, interests, for example. And so, why is this related to the digital nomad visa? As I said before, digital nomad visa is a very recent kind of visa that was created specifically. It was in October, at the end of October last year. Okay, so it's very recent. But before that, the D7 visa was the one used for this kind of applications, for this kind of remote workers or digital nomads. Consulates all over the world in Portugal, Portuguese consulates all over the world, were using the D7 visa as the one for digital nomads. So it's very likely that if you go through the internet, if you search for anything related to digital nomads, you will see the reference to the D7 visa. It's not correct anymore. So the D7 visa is not applicable for them anymore. At last, the job seeker visa is the residence visa for job seekers. People that want to come to Portugal, and here they will start searching for a job, and through that they will legalize themselves. I will talk about the last one after, but it's for European Union citizens and their family members. D7 visa, as I told before, is intended for retirees, passive income holders, and it's a kind of visa that follows the same structure as I mentioned before. So first of all, the applicant needs to go to the consulate, asks for the visa. The visa will be granted for 4 months. Within that time, they will need to travel to Portugal, attend an appointment with CEF, get the residence card. And the residence card will be valid for 2 years. After those 2 years, will be valid for an additional period of 3 years if it's renewed. The requirements, among others, the proof of ownership and entitlement and of payment of passive income in the amount of at least 760 euros per month, which can be topped with other assets. Crypto is not considered as passive income or regular income, so it's not possible to use it for this purpose. D3 visa, as I said before, this is for highly qualified professionals, employees, contractors. Why, which is the scope of this visa exactly? Here you can see. It's possible to apply to a highly qualified professional visa if you meet these requirements that are here. The visa application requires, among others, the following documents: employment contract, or a service provision agreement signed with a Portugal-based entity, valid for at least 12 months, with an income of at least 1,500 euros per month. Higher education diploma, so it's very relevant. That's how we can connect the dots and see that, okay, it's an highly qualified professional, or proof of at least 5 years of professional experience. Both relevant for the new job role, of course. So even if you have an MBA, but you are not performing highly qualified activity, so that's not a link between them, and it's not relevant, so you will not be getting the D3 visa in this case. It is possible in this case, and it's also possible in other cases, but I'm just telling you this for this particular case because nowadays the others are not so good, a good option, let me tell you. But for this, it's still a way to obtain a residence permit. If you come to Portugal as a tourist, and here you find a job, you get a work contract or service agreement meeting these requirements, and later on apply directly for the residence permit with CEF. In that case, you can obtain the residence permit here through what we call an expression of interest or something like that. You ask permission to CEF to legalize yourself even if you came as a tourist. For European citizens and their family members. This is important because, I don't know, but I can see you and I probably, it's very likely that among you there are some European Union citizens, and all of these are not applicable to you because the others were related to foreigners or third member countries. And in this case, if you are an European citizen, you should apply for what we call the CRU, which is the residence permit for European nationals. And instead of all this structure, it's done directly in Portugal. So these citizens can come, all the applicants can come to Portugal, stay here for about 90 days, and after that, or if they want to be here for a longer period, then they can go to the city hall where they live and apply for the residence certificate. And this certificate will be valid for 5 years instead of 2 years as the residence cards that I mentioned before. Some references about that. Also relevant to know, I don't think, it's for family members. Family members of European citizens can come to Portugal as well. And here, after the European citizen obtains the certificate, they can also apply for their own residence permit. It's quite as the family reunification process that I told you before. But it's slightly different. It's also done through CEF, through the Immigration and Border Services in Portugal. But instead of having a residence card for 2 years, it's also valid for the same period of the certificate of the family member. So it will be valid for 5 years as well. I'm not going through this slide, of course, but I prepared this, or we prepared this, just because we will share this information afterwards. And so you can have like a map with all the information about the digital nomad, the temporary stay visa and the residence visa, the D7 and D3, which are the most common for remote workers and for people that are interested on this specific talk, let's say. And here you can have a look about the fees, about the timeline, about the documents, requirements. Here you can have it and you can use it later on. Non-habitual residence status. One of the advantages of relocating to Portugal is tax advantage. what is this? This is a specific kind of status for people that were not considered as tax residents for the last 5 years in Portugal, and they relocate to Portugal. And then, with this, they can be exempt on foreign dividends, interests, and capital gains, as long as these are taxable at source within the applicable tax treaty. All of these are for 10 consecutive years, okay? It's a 10-year-long program, let's say. Exemption on foreign works-related income if effectively taxed at source. Reduce 20% flat tax rate on domestic employment and self-employment income if derived from a high added value activity. And reduce 10% tax flat rate on foreign pensions if sourced abroad. So it's quite good, because if you know how IRS, personal income tax in Portugal works, you know that it can go up to 48%. So being taxed on 20% for about 10 years is quite good. I wish I could make it, actually. And that's it. The presentation is this, and I leave the room for any questions that you have. I'm not having here some business cards, but here you have the QR code if you want. It will be here for you, and there are my contacts, and you can have it. Okay? That's it. Let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.